Okay, we're going to calculate a couple of bands of power indices as well as try and put together the bands of power distribution for a weighted voting system today. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to make up a weighted voting system. Please consider this weighted voting system. We have a quota of 4, and we have 3 players with weights 3, 2, and 1. So this is our weighted voting system that we are going to look at. Okay. First, step number 1, the first thing we have to do is we have to make a list of all the possible winning coalitions. When we look at this, remember what we're looking for is we are looking for some combination of the 3 players. When we sum their weights, we get 4 or more. So that's kind of what we're after. So first, let's consider the coalition, the grand coalition. Player 1, player 2, player 3. If we sum those weights, player 1, player 2, player 3, we get a total of 6 votes. So that is a winning coalition. If we consider the coalition player 1 and player 2, player 1 and player 2 together gives us 5 votes. So that's a winning coalition. Player 2 and player 3 together gives us a total of 3 votes. That is not a winning coalition. Player 1 and player 3 together gives us 4 votes. That is a winning coalition. So when we're looking for the winning coalitions here, let's take a look at how many we have. So we have this first one, this second one, and this third one. There are all the winning coalitions. Okay, this one that's player 2 and player 3 together, that is a losing coalition, so we're going to kind of strike that. Okay, step 2. What we want to do is within each winning coalition determine which are the critical players. To determine if a player is critical or not, remember if we take that player out of the coalition, will that coalition still be a winning coalition? If that answer to that is yes, then that player is not critical. If the answer to that is no, then the player is critical. So let's list our winning coalitions. Player 1, player 2, player 3, player 1, player 2, and player 1 and player 3. Those are our winning coalitions. So what we want to do is we want to look at first how many times is player 1 critical. So I find all the coalitions that have player 1 in it, and I consider what happens if I take player 1 out of that coalition. For example, in this first coalition, if I take player 1 out of this coalition, I'm left with 2 and 3 alone, and 2 and 3 alone is not a winning coalition. So that means player 1 is critical in this coalition. Then I look at the next winning coalition. If I take player 1 out of there, this is not a winner, so player 1 is critical again. And then in the final, so I'm looking at these two, in the final, if I take player 1 away, that's left with just player 3. That is not a winning coalition. So player 1 is critical 3 times. Now let's look at player 2. So looking at this coalition, if I take player 2 away, is this still a winning coalition? Well, player 1 and player 3 together give us 4 total votes, so player 2 is not critical here. But he is critical in the next one. Here, player 2 is critical, and he doesn't exist in the third one. So player 2 is critical a total of 1 time. Now let's look at player 3. Player 3, if I take player 3 away from this very first coalition, that's still a winning coalition, so player 3 is not critical here. And then he's only existent in this last coalition. If I take him away, he is critical here, so player 3 is critical 1 time. Okay, so that's the first 2 steps to creating our power distribution. Step 3, what we want to do is we want to count the number of times that player 1 is critical. Call this number B1, so we'll call that Banzaf 1. So here's what we're going to do. Notice up here at the top, player 1 has a Banzaf number of 3. So the Banzaf for player 1 is 3. The Banzaf for player 2 is 1, and the Banzaf for player 3 is also 1. So I found the Banzaf numbers. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to find the total number of times all players are critical. So we're going to find this total. And we do that by just summing the Banzaf numbers. So we're going to take these numbers and we're going to sum them. 3 plus 1 plus 1 is 5. So my total here is 5. Okay, my last step to find the this next number, this beta, this is actually the Banzaf index for each player. The Banzaf index for player 1 is the Banzaf number for player 1, which is 3 from up here, and we divide that by the total of 5. And when we divide that out, that gives us 0.6. Look at the Banzaf index for player 2. He was critical 1 time out of a total of 5 critical values, 0.2 for his Banzaf index. The Banzaf index for player 3 is also a 1 out of 5, or 0.2. So there we found the Banzaf index for each player. And the Banzaf, so these are the Banzaf indices. So this is an index, this is an index, and this is a Banzaf index. And when we consider them all together, that's when we have the Banzaf power distribution. So all together is the distribution. So let's talk about this distribution. A couple things that you might notice. If I sum all of these indices, notice that they add to 1, or 100% of the Banzaf power numbers are represented here. In addition to that, notice that even though player 2 and player 3, if we go back to the original weighted voting system, player 2 has twice as many votes as player 3, but according to this Banzaf power distribution, we see that player 2 and player 3 have the same amount of power. They have the same amount of veto power. They have the same amount of ability to pass a motion. So really, that's kind of what these Banzaf numbers do, is they break down for us and they show us where is the power located in this weighted voting system. So I hope that was semi-clear. If you're having any trouble, feel free to get in touch with me, and we'll be back at it again later.